Shall we? Yeah. Tere pärastlõunat! Enne kui liigume sisulise poolega juurde, üks tehniline kommentaar. Kes soovib synkroontõlget, palun sealt eest haarata endale kõrvaklappe ja kanalid on putkade peal kirjas. Good afternoon. Before we proceed, if you feel yourself uncomfortable with Estonian, please be kind and get your headphones over there from the corner by the entrance and adjust them to the proper channel. So for English, the channel was 1, for Estonian, the channel was 2. Täna siis majanduskoostöö ja arenguorganisatsiooni peasekretär Jose Angel Hurria ja tervise- ja tööminister Jevgeni Ossinovski tutvustavad OECD majandusülevaadet Eesti kohta ning alustab härra peasekretär Hurria. The floor is yours.
Dear friends, Mr. Minister, Your Excellency, Ambassador Streitman, you have in front of you the economic survey, and now I will officially give it to you. So for the photo, yes. Like this. Thank
you.
Okay. So,
very good.
And you have then the PowerPoint of the report. And then, if you're really very busy, 1 page of the report. And then an even smaller and shorter press release of the report. So you have you have four different presentations. Now, I'm going to just comment on some of the highlights of the report. Thank you, Minister Ossinovski, friends from the media, ladies and gentlemen, Ambassador, and of course the team OECD, and the team in the Ministry of Finance, in the Central Bank, in the Ministry of the Economy, in the Ministry of Labor and Health, and the different ministries here in Estonia, which contributed to putting this report together. We are at the buzzing hub of your EU presidency to launch the OECD 2017 Economic Survey of Estonia. Actually, tomorrow I will be joining the Ministers of Finance of the ECOFIN in order to discuss a number of issues with them. Let me begin by thanking the authorities, as I said, for the preparation. I also just enjoyed, together with my colleagues, a delicious lunch. So we'd like to thank you for that. Our study, first of all, recognizes the numerous strengths of the Estonian economy. Estonia has an excellent business environment, strong initial education, as shown by our PISA scores, in which Estonia is one of the countries that is doing better, an innovative ICT sector, and very solid public finances. So solid that you practically have no net debt. You have very small debt to GDP, and then if you have some reserves, you take away the debt from the reserves, and then you end up with a negative net debt. Major macroeconomic imbalances, which had accumulated before the crisis, have actually been addressed. Macroprudential tools are in place to mitigate the risk of repeated boom and then bust cycles. You already suffered in 2009, so you know how it is, and you don't want that to happen again. Significant measures have been taken to improve the labor market performance, Monsieur le Ministre, including tax reforms and additional spending on active labor market policies. Economic growth, which had disappointed in the years before, is now gaining momentum. We project GDP growth to reach about 4.2 or 4.3 this year, more than twice the euro area average projection. The euro area average projection is going to be below 2%, at least this year. So you are growing at about double that. Not bad. The unemployment rate has declined significantly in recent years. In fact, by more than 10%, from a peak of 17% in 2010. And in fact, it's 6.6% last June. The average unemployment number in the euro area is 9.1. So you are about 2/3 of the unemployment rate in the euro area. And we must highlight that on many dimensions of well-being, Estonia scores as high as or higher than the typical OECD country. All this amounts to a very impressive record. Now, how about the challenges? How about the homework? Let's talk a little bit about that. There are many recommendations. You know, it's good reading. It's good reading. I can recommend it to you. It's quite fascinating reading because even if you're Estonian, you get to know your country better. And if you're not Estonian, like me, then it's quite fascinating reading because there's a call of adventure, of discovery. No? But let me just highlight 3 of the issues. First of all, productivity growth has slowed down significantly from a yearly average of 6% before the crisis. Now we are about 2% or less than 2% since 2011. A large number of firms, even young firms, are displaying very low capacity for innovation. Today, Estonian average productivity is only 65% of the average of the OECD. So you are 1/3 below the average of the OECD. Now, let me just tell you, there are 2 things. One is, flows, and the other one is stocks. And what is productivity? That's basically what a typical average worker produces every hour or every day or every. And what's happening? Well, over the years, you have accumulated a certain level of productivity, but then there's the growth of every year. And if you take into account the accumulated productivity gains of the OECD countries on average and of the Estonian economy, effectively you are at about 2/3, 65% of the OECD average. And why is this important? Because increasing the productivity is the only way in which you can sustain your growth. Increasing your productivity is the only way in which you can increase the wages in an important way, but in a way which is more, let's say, solid. Right now you have an inflation in wages which is basically produced by a problem of shortage of skills. in certain industries in certain regions. But the question is the increases in the inflation, in the wages, this what I would call wage inflation, is it corresponding to an increase in the productivity? If it is not, it means you are in danger of losing competitiveness. If you have consistently increased wages above the productivity, then you are losing competitiveness. And other countries will, come and take your cheese, substitute you with the exports and with the business opportunities, etc. So, second, so productivity is the first issue. Second, high levels of inequalities persist. Estonia has one of the highest poverty rates, 16% in the OECD. It has a very high gender pay gap. How much do men and women gain for comparable jobs? It's 28%. It's very, very high. And it's still hampered by large income gaps in general, not just men and women, but just in general. The average income of the richest 20% of the population is about 6.2 times that of the poorest 20%. So what? Is this good or bad or big or small? Well, the average of the OECD is 5.3 times. So let's say you are about 20% higher than the average. The difference in the share of the population reporting good health, when you distinguish between the rich and the poor, is above 40%. That's a very large number. And lastly, skills shortages and mismatches have appeared in some sectors. ICT is very typical. But also, sir, you are the Minister of Health and Labor. So in the healthcare area, there are mismatches that are appearing. That means you have the demands for some skills, for some people who are specialized in this, and there's not just the doctors, whether they are very high diplomas or specialization. It's also even people who are taking care of the elderly or professionals of this kind of thing. Estonia's working age population is continuing to decline. You are kind of shrinking. So to put this in perspective, around 40% of the employees reported, this is just a questionnaire to them, to the people who are working, that they had insufficient skills for their job at the time of the hiring. Now, here we were commenting with the minister that normally people feel more comfortable, let's say a year after they have been hired, they're feeling more familiar with the job, etc. But the numbers after some time do not get considerably better. So why? Because this is a problem of the whole of the OECD countries, that for highly digitized or for increasingly digitized jobs, people are feeling that they're insufficiently prepared. But also in other more technologically advanced, they don't have to be computer experts, just simply where you are facing more technologically advanced processes. Now, how about some recommendations to address these challenges? Well, fiscal prudence is important for a small open economy like Estonia to mitigate negative external shocks, to ensure a stable macroeconomic outlook. Yet, Estonia can use fiscal policy to improve the long-term potential of the economy. This means, this is very complicated economic jargon by the economists, which means you can spend a little bit more and nothing would happen to Estonia. At 10%, Estonia has the lowest gross public debt relative to GDP. Let me just say that the average for the OECD is 100%. You are at 10%. This is just to show you how much better off you are. I just came from delivering the economic report in your neighbors here in, in Riga, in Latvia. They are at 40%, and they are one of the lowest. But you are the lowest, by far. In fact, if you take your reserves into consideration, you have your no net debt. Basically, you don't owe any public debt. The government's decision, therefore, to allow a small fiscal deficit for the period of 2017 to 2020 is not going to endanger the sustainability of the public finances. The OECD, which normally is telling countries, be prudent, be careful, reduce your debt, reduce your deficit. We are saying to you in Estonia here, with the minister and the ambassador and all of you here saying this small addition to the expenditure, that going with a very modest deficit spending, nothing is going to happen to Estonia. You're going to continue to reduce the debt to GDP ratio because you are going to continue to grow faster. And remember, 10% against, the economy, which is 100%. But if this grows by 0.5 or 1% or whatever like that, and this one is growing at a faster rate, we said that you were going to grow at about 4% or something like that. That means that this number is going to get just bigger and bigger and bigger faster, and the other one is going to continue to grow, but very modestly. It's only going to grow in nominal terms. But as a proportion of the bigger number, it's going to be getting smaller. So there's absolutely no danger. There is no risk for the public finances and for the sustainability of the public finances. I know that this is a sensitive issue in Estonia. You are very, very well advised of being very prudent and extremely careful, and also saying what could happen. Well, just in case, let's have lower debt. But also, you have an opportunity to grow faster, to maybe invest in a number of areas where you would like to have better social services, etc. And you can do this without endangering the stability of your public finances. So I want to leave it on the record that the OECD believes that you're doing the right thing, and that your public finances will continue to be the best in the OECD. In fact, Estonia could afford to run small deficits beyond 2020 to finance measures that boost long-term growth potential. Small deficit of 0.5% of GDP beyond 2020 would keep the debt ratio constant at its current levels. This would allow for more investment in priority areas such as social protection, health, lifelong learning, and the environment. Life expectancy in Estonia is, on average, 2 years shorter than in the OECD. We're talking about averages. Access to healthcare is being improved, but incentives to reduce work accidents should be strengthened. And green investment should be strengthened also. Because of its reliance on oil shale, Estonia has the most carbon-intensive economy in the OECD. Now, this is probably a gold medal that you don't want. We understand that the energy autonomy or energy independence, or at least the alternative, having the alternative, because you're going to have these pipelines and you can feed from here and from there, and you're next to a very big provider. But the question is, having your own deposits of shale and exploiting them produces emissions which may not be consistent with your own expressed target of bringing down emissions. So what we believe that Estonia should set appropriate tax rates on oil shale, vehicle and energy use to reflect the environmental damage that they generate. I always use the example of the Swedish, who I think have now more than 100 euros per ton of avoided CO2 equivalent. And the European systems of ETS, the emissions trading schemes, are still producing like, I don't know, 7, 12, 13 euros. They're no good. No, it's not working. And as I said, well, the Swedish look very well, thank you very much, they do not seem to have been affected, their competitiveness or anything, because they have this. But basically, if you are going to emit, then at least put a big fat price on the emissions. Now Estonia can also benefit from greater integration into global value chains and stronger productive investment. These are vital in boosting productivity and fostering long-term inclusive growth. With exports at around 80% of GDP, Estonia is highly integrated into international trade in the world. But it remains specialized in products that are between medium or even low complexity. And that represents, low to medium represents about half of your total exports. So the value added is relatively low. To increase the export potential, but also the value added from trade, efforts should concentrate on strengthening adult education, cooperation between businesses and researchers. We have a graph in there that says how many Estonian companies are linking up with universities or research centers in order to work together to be more competitive. Very few. In fact, one of the fewest numbers in the whole OECD. So there needs to be a better connection between the private sector and the research centers. Then, of course, how much do you invest in research and development? You invest 1.5% of GDP. The OECD, on average, is about 2.5%. The leaders in the OECD, like Sweden and maybe even Korea, are moving from 3.5% to 4%. So I would say there's a gap in there, and it's something that we should focus on. Now, Estonia must also focus on unleashing more productive investment. Therefore, how can we make it easy? How can we make it attractive? How can we make it, simplified? So eliminating barriers to business and trade is crucial because it reduces costs for companies. Estonia also needs an efficient insolvency regime, a bankruptcy regime, to avoid the capital being trapped in low productivity firms. It is also crucial to expand access to funding. In this respect, our study highlights that the financial industry should be diversified by granting banking licenses to savings and loans associations, as well as removing barriers to the development of alternative funding modes, peer-to-peer lending, for example, or equity-based crowdfunding. Another factor which remains crucial to make Estonia more attractive for investment is the upskilling of its workforce. Skilling, reskilling, upskilling, This skilling means just provide the capacities. But reskilling means people may have some capacities, but they're not necessarily the right capacity. They're not useful. And upskilling means you have the capacities, but the demands of the market now is for, in that area, more sophisticated. So you have to upskill what you need. So skilling, reskilling, upskilling, all, and this is very much in the question of labor, because when you come out, it has to be a combination of the education system, but also with the labor system. Ideally, every company should be a school, and every large company should be like a university. For what? Well, simply because in their own self-interest, companies would have better skilled workers, the workers would have, more productivity, they would produce more, and they could be better remunerated, etc. So basically, you're talking about something which is good for everybody. It's a kind of win-win proposition. But again, the upskilling of the workforce, addressing growing skill shortages and labor market inequalities is a priority. This would lead to an improvement of the investment capacity of Estonian firms, as well as drawing more value added from trade. Now, people must be equipped with the right skills for the 21st century and for the next production revolution. More effort should be invested into eliminating gender gaps, improving the career prospects of women, and encouraging participation rates of young mothers. To this end, child care services are being expanded. This is a very productive investment, Minister. I know you know this, and this is why you are promoting it. But I can tell you, this frees up the capacity of women to join the workforce. And it also makes for better citizens for the children, because they will go into a social environment which is conducive to their multiplying the roots with which they will connect to the rest of the world and the rest of their lives. And when you are 2 years old, 3 years old, this is when the brain is being formed and when all the connections are being developed. So this is, to be in a socially rich environment, let's say. They will also become better citizens in terms of their emotional skills, their social skills. So it's very, very, very productive investment to build this capacity. And at the same time, there's also the question of parental leave. And how do you divide the parental leave, including for fathers, because not all the fathers use the parental leaves and share more or less equally. Now, how about migration to ease skills shortages? Well, not too long ago, some of the Estonian young men and women were leaving. Some of them left. I'm being told that most of them for Finland. Now you have a few tens of thousands in Finland, but who are not too far away, so they come often. But at the same time, now many of them are coming back more or less permanently. And second, you are now finding or having some citizens of other countries who are looking for opportunities in Estonia. This is good news. And I can say, if you do this carefully, and I know that there's a big discussion, political discussion on the European Union and the Brexit and everything else, and all this. But I'm talking here about how can Estonia make the best out of the possibilities of a well-managed, carefully chosen migration flows that could address some of the shortages that you have in your own skills in the country. to improve Estonia's attractiveness for skilled migrants working and settling in Estonia could be made easier. And of course, there's a question of the quotas. So, Minister, Ambassador, dear friends, Estonia has made great strides in strengthening its economy and increasing its well-being. Congratulations for that. It is now crucial to make the most of this positive momentum and focus on targeted reforms for most sustainable and inclusive growth. So count on the OECD, Minister. Let's work together to achieve better policies for better lives in Estonia. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary General. And now we are going to proceed in Estonian. Härra minister, tervise- ja tööminister Jevgeni Ossinovski jätkab nüüd oma sõnavõtuga.
Tere päevast! Tänan Eesti valitsuse poolt OECD peasekretäri ja tema meeskonda selle koostöö eest majandusülevaate koostamisel ja selle põhjaliku töö eest, mis on sellesse panustatud. Eesti väärtustab OECD sellist analüütilist vaadet liikmesriikide erinevate poliitika osadesse väga kõrgelt, sealhulgas kindlasti ka majandusvaldkonnas. Meil on kahtlematult hea meel, et OECD tunnustab Eesti majanduspoliitikat, seda muutust, transformatsiooni, mida Eesti on läbinud taasiseseisvumisperioodi jooksul ja näeb tugevusi Eesti majanduses nagu eeskujulik ettevõtluskeskkond, kõrge tööhõivemäär, haritud ja paindlik tööjõud, innovaatiline IKT-sektor ja ka avaliku sektori efektiivsus, sealhulgas digitaliseeritus ja mõistagi ka eeskujulik eelarvepoliitika. Samas nagu ikka tuuakse välja ka kitsaskohad, millele on oluline tähelepanu pöörata, nagu näiteks vananev elanikkond, kõrge suhteline vaesus, elanikkonna tervisenäitajad ja ka näiteks suur sooline palgalõhe ja üldine innovatsioonisuutlikkus, mis tuleneb sellest, et Eesti ettevõtete investeeringud arendus- ja teadustegevusse on paraku madalamad, kui me tahaksime. Kindlasti on meile oluliseks nende kitsaskohtade pealt tehtud soovitused, kuidas seda olukorda võiks parandada ja oluline selles analüüsis on kahtlematult alati võrdlus teiste riikidega, mis võimaldab hinnata seda, millised poliitikad, millised tegevused sarnaste probleemide lahendamisel on mujal riikides toiminud ja millised on vähem edukad olnud. Ja ma arvan, et eks see ongi üks OECD suurimaid lisandväärtusi, et riigid ei peaks kordama samu vigu, vaid võiksid õppida parimatest praktikatest, mis teistes riikides rakendatud on. Üldjoontes oleme me OECD analüüsi esitatud väljakutsetega nõus. Kindlasti soovituste osas on igal riigil lõpuks oma unikaalne olukord, millest tulenevalt konkreetseid lahendusi valida, aga kahtlematult seatud küsimuse püstitused ja lahendussuunad on igati õiged. On rõõm tõdeda, et Eesti majanduskasv on ka viimastel kvartalitel kiirenenud ning seetõttu väljavaated on veelgi paremad kui selle ülevaate koostamise ajal ja ka mitmed tegevused, mis on rakendunud varem ja on juba tänaseks andmas oma mõju, ei ole veel oma positiivse tulemustega siia andmestikku jõudnud. Aga kui mõned olulisemad mainida, siis nagu härra peasekretär ütles, on valitsuse eelarvepoliitika tugev, tegelikult üks parimaid nii Euroopa Liidus kui OECD riikide seas. Tasakaalulähedane eelarvepositsioon on hoidnud riigivõla väga madalal, suurendanud reserve, mida halvematel aegadel kasutada. Ja on loomulikult hea meel, et OECD toetab seda muutust, mida valitsus on eelarvepoliitikas teinud selleks, et mõõdukalt lõdvendada eelarvereeglit selleks, et me saaksime juba täna investeerida Eesti inimvarasse, infrastruktuuri selleks, et tagada tulevikus suurem ja jätkusuutlikum kasv. Aruanne toob positiivsena esile ka inimeste sissetulekute ja heaolu kasvu, mis Eestis täiesti objektiivselt ja vaieldamatult on toimunud, eriti viimastel aastatel, sealhulgas näiteks alampalga kasv, mis on olnud viimastel aastatel umbes 2 korda kiirem kui keskmise palga kasv Eesti riigis. Loomulikult oleme ka meie juba varasemalt astunud samme selleks, et vaesust vähendada, aga kahtlematult on see jätkuvasti üks suurimaid probleeme. OECD analüüsis toodud andmed pärinevad aastast 2015 ja nüüd aastatel 2016 ja 2017 on rakendunud ka täiendavaid meetmeid, mis on suunatud eeskätt vaesuse vähendamisele, laste vaesuse vähendamisele eeskätt, aga ka laiemalt vaesusriski leevendamisele erinevates valdkondades ja teame, et need sammud jätkuvad uue hooga järgmisest aastast, kui jõustub laiaulatuslik maksureform, mis aitab vähendada ebavõrdsust. Ja eks alampalga läbirääkimised, nagu meil tavaks on, käivad siis ametiühingute ja tööandjate vahel, aga eks üldine arusaam, et kõrgemad palgad, eriti sissetulekute alumises otsas, on absoluutne hädavajadus. Õige on kahtlematult see, et väheneva tööturu tingimustes on tööjõu nappus muutumas üheks suurimaks arengutakistuseks Eesti ettevõtetele ja eks see on olnud üks olulisemaid põhjusi ka palgakasvuks, mis on tõepoolest varasematel aastatel ületanud ka tootlikkuse kasvu. Ja positiivse poole pealt kahtlematult võib öelda, et viimases kvartalis koos kiireneva majanduskasvuga esmakordselt üle väga pika aja oluliselt kasvas ka tööjõu tootlikkus. Me loodame, et see trend on püsiv, mitte ühekordne, aga kahtlematult vajab Eesti ka palju tõsisemat ja süsteemsemat tööd selleks, et tootlikkuse küsimusega tegeleda ja arutasime ka peasekretäriga võimalust, kas OECD saaks Eestile siinkohal oma sügavama analüütikaga appi tulla ja vaadata, mida veel teha oleks võimalik. Olulisemad asjad või komponendid selles on loomulikult meile kõigile teada. Esiteks loomulikult lahendusena suurendada tööhõivet, ehkki tööhõive numbrid Eestis on juba päris kõrged, siiski on veel kasutamata ressurssi ja potentsiaali. OECD toob välja töövõimereformi, mis tõepoolest on tööhõivet suurendav ja teiselt pidi ka vaesust leevendav meede, aga samamoodi mainitakse ära vanemapuhkuste küsimus, mis on eriti väikelastega emade tööhõive määra kunstlikult madalal hoidnud ja sellest tulenevalt on valitsus lähinädalatel Riigikogule esitamas ka vanemapuhkuste muutmise regulatsiooni, kus reserveeritakse eraldi osa ainult isadele ja samal ajal suurendatakse süsteemi paindlikkust selleks, et väikelastega vanemad saaksid paremini ühitada töö- ja pereelu ehk siis käia tööl. Me oleme muutmas 1. jaanuarist toimetulekutoetuse süsteemi, mille kohaselt motiveerime toimetulekutoetuse saajaid aktiivselt tööturul osalema, võimaldades siis sotsiaaltoetust saades hakata tööle niimoodi, et automaatselt toetus ei väheneks, mis on täna olukord, et inimesed ei ole huvitatud lühiajalistele töödele minekust, sest nii palju, kui nad teenivad, võetakse neil toetusena maha. Alates järgmisest aastast see süsteem muutub töötamist rohkem toetavaks ja kindlasti näeme selle mõju ka tööturule. Oli olulisena märgitud ja kindlasti Eesti riigile ääretult oluline on küsimus oskustest. Arvestades ka tehnoloogia kiirenevat arengut ja selle mõju majandusele, siis Eesti innovaatilise ja avatud majandusena kindlasti vajab oluliselt agressiivsemat oskuste arendamise poliitikat, kui siiani on see olnud. Eesti tööjõu haridustaseme puhul oleme me näinud sellist teatud paradoksi, kui nii võib öelda, või ebakõla, kus 15-aastaste oskusi vaadates, mida mõõdab OECD oma PISA uuringus, on Eesti üks maailma liidreid, aga kui me vaatame täiskasvanute oskusi, siis meil on ligi 30% tööealisest elanikkonnast, kellel ei ole ei kõrg- ega kutseharidust, ja siis veel terve hulk inimesi, kellel formaalselt on see kvalifikatsioon olemas, aga kvalifikatsioon on vananenud. See on seotud eeskätt sellega, et Eesti ühiskonnas ei ole juurdunud elukestvat õpet toetavad hoiakud, ehk siis täiskasvanu koolituses osalemise protsendid on madalad ja sellest tulenevalt selleks, et seda adresseerida, oleme just sellest aastast käivitanud Töötukassas ka täiesti uue süsteemi, millega me rahastame töötavate inimeste, kelle kvalifikatsioon on ebapiisav, täiendavat koolitust, ümberõpet, täiendõpet. Teeme seda nii töötajatele endile kui ka toetame ettevõtteid, kes oma töötajatesse tahavad investeerida, lahendades siinkohal teatud Eesti turutõrget, mida paljudes teistes riikides ei ole, nimelt seda, et Eestis on valdav osa ettevõtetest on mikroettevõtted, mis tähendab seda, et neil sellist vaba ka logistilist ressurssi selleks, et oma töötajate koolitustesse investeerida, on oluliselt vähem kui paljudes teistes majandustes, kus ettevõtlusstruktuur on hoopis teistsugune. Me investeerime täiendavalt ligi 10% lisavahendeid haridusse lähimatel aastatel selleks, sest arusaadavalt on haridus üks olulisemaid investeeringuid tulevikku. Nüüd rõõm on tõdeda, et aruanne tunnustab Eesti pingutusi elanikkonna tervisenäitajate parendamisel. Me jätkuvasti oleme sellega kindlasti nii Euroopa Liidu kontekstis kui OECD kontekstis kaugeltki mitte eeskujulikud, aga kui võrrelda seda, kui palju me oleme suutnud tervisenäitajate olukorda 20 aastaga parandada, ka võrreldes näiteks oma lõunanaabritega, on siiski olnud muljetavaldav ja valitsus on astumas tõsiseid samme nii tubaka- ja alkoholipoliitikas, samme, mis puudutavad tasakaalustatud toitumist, füüsilist aktiivsust soodustava keskkonna loomist. Ja samal ajal on käivitumas ka tervishoiu rahastamise reform, mis vähendab patsientide omaosalust, mis on jätkuvasti Eestis siiski kõrge, ja teisest küljest muudab tervishoiuteenused kättesaadavamaks, sest nagu OECD analüüs näitab, on paraku inimeste hinnang nii oma tervisele kui ka tervishoiusüsteemi toimimisele tervikuna kaugeltki mitte eeskujulik. On soovitatud OECD poolt suurendada sanktsioone ning nõuda tööandjatelt töötajatele õnnetuste ja tööga seotud tervisekahjude kompenseerimist. Tõsi on see, et kui me võrdleme ennast paljude teiste riikidega, siis meie töötajad puutuvad kokku eriti madalamatel kvalifikatsiooniastmetel siis selliste paljude kutsealaste füüsiliste riskidega. Me teame, et jätkuvasti Eestis on liiga palju inimesi, kes saavad kas raskeid kehavigastusi või surevad. Alles eile oli üks sarnane juhtum mitte kaugelt siit. Ja me oleme Sotsiaalministeeriumis ette valmistamas ka vastavat eelnõu, mis käsitleb ka sanktsioone, aga laiemalt pigem panustab siis ennetusele selleks, et tõepoolest ka muuta Eesti inimeste töökeskkonnad ohutumaks. OECD on juba mitte esimest korda heitnud ette, et meie finantsmeetmed ei ole piisavad vähendamaks keskkonnakahjusid ja OECD soovitus on olnud põlevkivile, transpordi ja energiakasutusele tõsta keskkonnamaksusid. Me oleme tõepoolest üks kehvemate näitajatega energiaintensiivsuse mõttes riik maailmas ja loomulikult on siin olulisemaks põhjuseks meie põlevkivienergeetika, mis küll on sisemiselt muutunud palju puhtamaks ja efektiivsemaks, kui ta oli veel 10-20 aastat tagasi, aga kahtlematult moodustab enamiku meie kahjulikest saastest. Ja Eesti on võtmas ambitsioonikaid samme taastuvenergeetika juurutamiseks, kui me täna räägime umbes sellisest 15-20% taastuvenergiast, siis aastaks 2030 soovime selle numbri viia 50-ni, siis umbes pooleni ja tegelikult loomulikult tuleks ka Pariisi kliimaleppe valguses neid samme kiirendada. Seejuures kahtlematult arvestades ka Eesti põlevkivisektori eripära ja selle sotsiaalset mõju ühele konkreetsele Eesti regioonile ja piirkonnale. Madal innovatsioonisuutlikkus ja ülikoolide ja ettevõtete parem koostöö on kindlasti üks teema, millega Eesti on oma teaduspoliitikas, oma ettevõtluspoliitikas pikema aja jooksul tegelenud ja mitte ainult meie, eks probleem on ju iseenesest globaalne. Eesti avalik sektor panustab teadus-arendustegevusse natukene alla 1% SKT-st, mis on kindlasti madalam kui väga paljud teised riigid, aga oluliselt kõrgem kui meie regiooni piirkonnad, aga kus meie kõige suurem nõrkus siiani on olnud ja jätkuvasti on just nimelt erasektori panus teadus-arendustegevusse, sealhulgas läbi koostöö ülikoolidega. Aga vastavad sammud nii teadusasutuste rahastamise mõttes kui ka ettevõtlusmeetmete osas on osa juba rakendatud, osa rakendamisel ja loodame, et lähimatel aastatel annavad ka oma tulemuse. Nüüd kokkuvõtteks võime me öelda, et Eesti on selle aja jooksul, mis me oleme taasiseseisvunud Eestis majanduspoliitikat ajanud, olulisemad sellised lihtsad viljad kätte saanud läbi targa juhtimise, aga oleme oma arengus jõudnud sellesse positsiooni, kus aina enam meie konkurentsivõimest, arengust, edust hakkab sõltuma meie inimeste kvaliteedist, meie inimvarast, selle piiratusest numbrilises mõttes, arvestades tööturu kahanemist, aga loomulikult veelgi enam selle kvaliteedist, selle aktiivsusest, kui pikad ja kui terved on tööelud, kui head on oskused, kui hästi nad on kooskõlas meie majanduse ettevõtluse vajadustega. Ja sellest tulenevalt on ka valitsuse põhiline fookus olnud väga tugevalt ebavõrdsuse vähendamisel, võrdsemate võimaluste tagamisel, inimeste aktiveerimisel, tööturule toomisel, haridusel ja laste vaesuse vähendamisel kui teatud garantii tuleviku põlvkondade võrdsetesse võimalustesse. Lisaks oleme otsustanud täiendavalt investeerida avaliku sektori poolt tootlikkusse kasvu ja infrastruktuuri, jätkame neid investeeringuid lähimatel aastatel, nagu öeldud oli, natukene lõdvendades siis ka eelarve reeglit. Nii et me oleme sellest ajast peale, kui OECD käesoleva uuringu andmed pärinevad aastast 2005, tegelikult juba astunud märkimisväärselt edasi nende kriitiliste strateegiliste küsimuste lahendamisel ja lähimatel aastatel jätkame seda suunda. Nii et ma olen veendunud, et järgmisel korral, kui OECD peasekretär tuleb meile esitlema järgmist majandusülevaadet, on olulised tänastest soovitustest Eestil kas täidetud või vähemasti väga aktiivselt rakendamisel. Aitäh!
Aitäh kõigile tulemast, aitäh peasekretär Gurija ja minister Ossinovski. Pressikonverents on lõppenud.